World War II was probably one of the most vigorously studied conflicts in all of human history. But despite the war fundamentally changing the course of history, there are many things people still don't know about this titanic struggle. These are 10 things you didn't know about World War II. 4 out of every 5 German soldiers who lost their lives during the Second World War were killed on the Eastern Front. So when you think about it, 80% of World War II was essentially fought solely between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Which means that, if you think about it, the British and American operations against Germany were a mere sideshow in comparison to the vast amounts of men and equipment engaged in a desperate struggle on the Eastern Front. So it's safe to say that the Soviet Union was actually most responsible for defeating Nazi Germany. This fact becomes even more apparent when you look at the staggering cost of the Soviet triumph over Nazi Germany. The siege of Stalingrad alone resulted in more Russian military and civilian deaths than the number of casualties the United States and Britain sustained during all of the Second World War combined. Stalingrad, however, is just the tip of the iceberg. World War II was so devastating for Russia that only 20% of the entire male population born in 1923 survived the Second World War, meaning that in 1941, if you were a military-aged man in the Soviet Union, you only had a 1 in 5 chance of surviving the conflict. Some other sectors of the Second World War did have similar casualty figures. For example, if you served on a German U-boat, your chances of survival weren't much better than they were in the Soviet Union. This is because only 1 out of every 4 men serving on U-boats survived the war. This fact surprises most people because they probably learned in school that U-boats were a menace to Allied shipping. But the truth is, by the end of the war, the US and British naval forces became lethally proficient at locating and eliminating German U-boats. Not all Nazis were cartoonishly evil as they are often portrayed today. The best example of this was the Nazi Party member John Rabe. Despite his membership in one of the most reviled political movements of all time, John Rabe was an absolute hero. He was directly responsible for saving hundreds of thousands of Chinese civilians during the rape of Nanking. Instead of fleeing the city with other foreign nationals, Rabe walked around Nanking with a Nazi armband and confronted Japanese officers and soldiers while they were committing atrocities. All in all, John Rabe sheltered over 200,000 Chinese civilians inside a safe zone that he established. After the war, John Rabe received little recognition in the West for his heroic acts and lived in abject poverty after the war ended. After hearing about his dire circumstances, the citizens of Nanking later raised $20,000 to send to Rabe, and today, John Rabe, despite being a committed Nazi, is still a celebrated hero in China. Even restaurants during the Second World War attempted to do their part to help the war effort. In order to avoid using the German-sounding name of hamburger, American chefs and restaurant owners called them Liberty Steaks instead. Hitler's own nephew, William Patrick Hitler, actually served in the US Navy during the Second World War. Before the war, William Hitler often tried to blackmail his uncle into giving him a high-paying and cushy job in the German government. After Hitler rebuffed his nephew's attempts at blackmail, William Hitler fled Germany. When World War II broke out, William was stranded in the United States, and after receiving special permission from President Franklin D. Roosevelt, William Hitler served in the US Navy with distinction, and even received a Purple Heart after being wounded in action. The first bomb dropped on Berlin by the First Allied Air Raid killed the only elephant in the Berlin Zoo. During World War II, the largest Japanese spy ring was actually located in Tijuana, Mexico. Japanese intelligence operatives found that Mexico was an ideal location to recruit US spies and to conduct undercover operations, as US naval bases were located just a few minutes' drive over the lightly defended Mexican border. For a few people, World War II didn't end in 1945. In fact, the Imperial Japanese Army intelligence officer Hiro Onoda never surrendered in 1945 because he was unaware that the war had even ended. For almost 30 years, he held his position in the Philippines. Because Hiro Onoda refused to surrender, in 1974 his aging former commander had to travel all the way from Japan in order to personally relieve him from duty. For more top lists like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to keep up with our latest videos, hit that bell icon on mobile. Or if you're on a desktop, hit the gear icon and check "Send me all notifications." It really helps us out. And we will see you all next time.